Yo, what's up, everybody? Enson Inoue here again. Part two to the questions. Part one, we couldn't get through them all, so we're going to finish them off in part two. So enjoy. Right on.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Yamatodamashii podcast. My name is James, and I'm joined again by Enson Inoue. And today we are going to continue the Q&A, and we're going to start right back off where we left off with. And we had questions from Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all over. But one common theme did come up quite a bit, Enson, which was around sort of mentality in fights and fear. So 711 Spam Musubi, I hope I pronounced that right. Wanted to know, were you ever not scared in your fights because you always looked very relaxed?
I was scared in every single one of my fights. So the fear wasn't something that I was afraid of getting hurt. Of course, that was on my mind that I didn't want to get hurt, but I also, at the same time, prepared to die. So the fear that I had was, you fear of not performing to your standards. The fear of, for me, the biggest fear was when I picked my opponents, I picked someone that I thought would break me mentally and put me in this extreme fear zone that I would have to grow as a person. So my biggest fear in all my fights was that, am I going to be broken this time and turn into a coward? So my ideal was to fight fighters that could break me and turn me into a coward, because I felt that I would have the most lessons and I'll have the biggest lesson in something that happens like that. So every time I fought and, I picked my fighters, man, I always thought that this might be the guy that breaks me, and I was afraid of it. So I had a lot of fear. I had every single fight that I went to, I had to deal with fear. I'm not going to sit back and act like I was this guy that never feared anything. I feared every fight I fought, every hitter I fought.
So Ethan's own, Pavel KH, and Rebecca all ask a similar question, where essentially they're asking again about the fear and how was there a difference really in how you sort of approached it, sort of leading into the fight, maybe during the fight and after the fight, and how you sort of dealt with any sort of mental blocks. Is there any advice that you give for people just in general?
Well, like I said, when I was preparing for my fight, I was preparing to die. I was preparing knowing that I'm willing to accept the outcome might be death. So by accepting that and in your heart actually believing that and accepting that this might be our last day on earth, that helps with a lot of the fear before and during. Of course, the fear before is, am I going to perform to par? Am I going to be able to stay alive? Am I going to be, ready for this? And then during the fight, there's that fear of, am I going to be broken? Am I going to perform to what I can? And, after the fight, there's no fear. There's more of a big sigh of relief where I didn't die. But, I think with fear, it's one, I think, whether it's before, after, or during, I think the first thing that people have to do is accept that they're going to have fear. Because there's a lot of guys that say they don't feel fear, and I just have a hard time believing that. I think every normal man will feel fear. Mm-hmm. But what makes a difference in the men is what they do from the moment they feel the fear. There's a lot of guys that it's either fight or flight. Some people are going to just run from the fear. Some people are going to fight the fear. Someone's going to, like for me, I feel the best way to do it is to understand the fear. And that way you can work with it even better. So, fear, fear in the fight is also helps you with fear outside the fight. Like you have fear in the everyday world. You have fear about, a speech that you have to make in front of your boss. And it's one of those things that I think if you learn in the martial arts how to deal with it, you can transfer it to everyday life. So fear is, I think, the most important thing is accept that it's something that everyone's going to feel. And if you feel it, don't be disappointed in yourself. Feel the fear, understand the fear, and find a way how you can best conquer it or work with it.
It's really good advice, and it actually kind of answers the next question which I had, which was from Sup Sapporo, who was curious to know what techniques to use to become mentally strong. Is there anything else you want to add to that?
Well, to be mentally strong, I think you have to understand that everything happens for a reason. So whatever happens, all I believe that is if you give your 100% in whatever you do, you don't need to fear the outcome. You don't need to fear what happens. If you can fight hard and give everything you got, nothing's going to be wrong. If you're not what you have and wasn't enough for that day, then that's the way it is, man. You just start training harder, become a stronger person, become a stronger fighter. Yeah. So, did I answer the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Well, this kind of leads into that as well, because Chadwick Soronio is curious to know how you apply Yamatodamashii philosophy in like your everyday life.
Yeah. Well, I have this thing that I call the Yamatodamashii moment. It's a moment in your life that you really not going to believe that you're going to be able to do it. And then that's that moment where you're either going to decide to quit or to try and work through it. So, for example, for in the fight, like if you watch my Igor Vovichanchin fight, there was a moment when I grabbed onto him. I planned to throw toe-to-toe with him until someone got knocked out. There's a moment after I threw the first punch, I grabbed him. And I think that what happened was there was a little doubt in my heart that, like, holy shit, I don't know if I can do this. And it felt like a long time, but it was probably literally like 3 seconds maybe when I finally let go and just threw blow at him. So that moment that I had where I was grabbing onto him, knowing that I wanted to throw down, for me to run from that and grab, I actually had that fear, like, oh fuck, I don't know if I can do this. And I had that moment that I had to make that decision. Every Yamatodamashii moment isn't the same for every person. Like for example, F1. If I went into a F1 car, a race car, and I floorboarded it to the first turn, and I was going like 120 or 200 miles per hour, and I would start freaking out at the first turn. If that's too much, like I can't like bring the car down to 120 and take that first turn. I would be freaking out. That, like, for me, it would be like such a fear level for me that I would have to make a decision. What people have to understand is a Yamatodamashii moment for me isn't necessarily a Yamatodamashii moment for you. If I see a street fight and then the guy comes up to me with a knife and threatens to cut me, I'm probably not going to be that afraid of it. I'm going to be a little bit afraid and not want to get cut. But if you have someone that has never fought or has never been in any type of situation like that, and someone comes up to them with that's like a whole fucking moment for them. You know what I mean? So depending on the person, depending on the experiences of the person, that Yamatodamashii moment can be a different, in different stages. So what I believe that what helps you grow from those and applying Yamatodamashii into your everyday life is to recognize those moments. Recognize those moments where you got this thing, you got this boss telling you got to do this and get this all done by this day, and you really think it's impossible. And instead of saying, you know what, fuck, I quit, or tell the boss I can't do it, you're going to say, okay, shit, I'm going to try my best to do it. And that's like a Yamatodamashii moment, I believe. So, recognizing those moments where you really feel like you can't do something, and try to take on that challenge and do it and try to do it. I think that's so important. And that's how you can apply Yamatodamashii into your everyday life.
You actually brought up the Eagle fight, and it's such a huge fight in your career. And John on Twitter at Ace4MMA, he had a question just because he pointed out that you were the only man to sort of go head to head with Igor. And we're obviously when we get to that episode, we'll go into full detail. But he's just curious about the aftermath. So maybe just a quick summary on how bad the aftermath of that fight was.
After the fight, I mustered enough power to walk out on my own. Didn't get a stretcher. Didn't touch my cornerman. But as soon as I left the view of the crowd, something just dropped in me and I fell to the ground. They took me to the back room. Actually, Egan carried me to a back room where they poked in intravenous right away, straight up. I had like an IV go into me with, and straight. I remember being carried to the ambulance upstairs. So we're in this dome, Seibu Dome. It's called Seibu Dome. It's like a dome, a huge arena. And I guess wherever we were in the doctor's room, we had to go upstairs. So I remember them carrying me upstairs to the ambulance. Went straight to the hospital. I don't recall much about the ambulance ride, but I remember getting into the hospital bed. I remember there was a 24 nurse right in front of my room for the first 2 days. So overall, I had a perforated eardrum, so a big hole in my eardrum. I had a broken finger. This finger was broken. I had a broken jaw. I had the big thing that was real scary is I had a swollen brain. And another thing the doctors were worried about was I had a liver count 2,000 times the normal person. So that was all my injuries, man. It took me about 3 months to recover from that fight.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll do an in-depth look at that fight when we get to it, because we're going sort of chronological order.
Yeah,
with
we get
all
to
events.
Igor's fight. Yeah, that was the outcome of it.
But yeah, look out for that one, John, when we get to it. Willie Ninja on Instagram has asked, when was the first time you realized you were famous?
Oh, well, I have a story about when we were walking, I think I talked about it in one of our podcasts about, so when the people call out to Sayama, yeah.
Yeah,
I was like, holy shit, who are these people? He's like, I don't know, it's just fans. I'm like, holy shit, people that don't know you screaming your name.
Yeah.
So I think that's when I realized I was famous, when that started happening to me.
Okay.
Where guys that would come up out of nowhere and just say, oh, Enson, man, I enjoy watching your fights. I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, when people that I didn't know were just starting to approach me here and there, that's when I realized, oh, wow, man, it's like I'm famous now, which is really cool. But I make it a point not to let it get to my head. And it was kind of cool because I did a talk show actually with Nakai Yuki that knew me from my very beginning. And he pointed that out. He actually told me that Enson hasn't changed from the first day I met him to today. So that was like, for me, it was a big compliment. And, for me, it's like it's even when people say like you're super famous now, I still kind of like, I always feel like, yeah, but not even near like Brad Pitt. And, yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's kind of sort of famous, but not really. But I guess, yeah, if people are like calling out your name or asking you for autographs and pictures, and I guess that would consider me famous.
Definitely.
Maybe that's when I realized that when people started asking me for autographs and pictures.
Yeah, I always think that, if you were to come along 20 years time, like now, like Dana White would be signing you up in a heartbeat, just because you have that mentality that he loves in his favorite fighters, of just like leave it all on the line, go in with every fight. So it's kind of, MMA was huge in Japan, and obviously you had huge fame in Japan. But if you had, I don't know, had a UFC run in 2020, I feel like, your fame in America would be just as parallel to what it was in Japan.
And I probably wouldn't have any belts, or not really have a good record, but I'd probably get a lot of bonuses.
Yeah.
Bonuses are worth a lot. Like sometimes 75,000, I think Dana gives for bonuses.
Yeah.
I mean, that'd be nice to get some bonuses, man.
Yeah. Willie Ninja also asked another question around the difference between preparing for a fight yourself and preparing, the people that you train. Do you find there's a big difference in mentality and how you feel?
Oh no, I pretty much when I'm training Sushi now, so whenever he trains for fights, I pretty much train and make him do things that I would probably do. So Actually, no difference. The only difference actually is like he can't tell how much he's actually pushing himself, and just have to guess. And I know myself that how hard I'm pushing.
Mhm.
But yeah, other than that, there's no difference. I care about him as much as I care about myself. So what I would do to prepare myself for battle, I make him do.
Great. Jaquan asks, what do Japanese citizens think of the declining birth rate?
Um, One, I'm not a Japanese citizen, so I don't know if I can answer that. Two, I didn't even know there was a declining birth rate. So, uh, sorry, man, I can't really properly answer that question. Maybe you should Google it. Nowadays we can Google shit. So I wouldn't know. Sorry, I don't want to make up an answer. And I'm not a Japanese citizen, so you're probably asking the wrong person. Google it, bro.
So this next question actually comes from my twin brother, Ben. Shout out to Ben. He wants to know, who are some of your favorite fighters to watch?
Um, Mike Tyson. As if you want to talk boxing, I love watching Mike Tyson fight. Just that ferocity of doing whatever he needs to do to hurt his opponent was really impressive. Nowadays, and I love to watch Justin Gaethje, Khabib.
Yeah.
Who else, man? Yeah, just a lot of the scrappers, man. Yeah, I used to love watching Diego Sanchez before he met Fabio.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Fabio, I don't even know how
Yeah.
to say his name.
Joshua Faber. Yeah.
Yeah, for Joshua or whatever. Yeah, but yeah, Diego Sanchez was another one I'd love to watch. So yeah.
Yeah. No, they have just announced Michael Chandler versus Justin Gaethje as well, which is like,
Oh man, that's
a
gonna be a good fight.
Yeah.
Michael Chandler's a freaking beast too.
Yeah. So those two, the way they match up, I think that's a great fight on paper.
That's gonna be a freaking war, man. I'm gonna buy that one for sure and watch it.
Yeah. The lightweight was with Dan Hooker. He's about, they have so many good fights that they can be made there. Canny C asks, can you come to America for seminars? Which I guess is a bit of a plug for what you've got coming up.
Yeah, reach out to me if you have someone that wants to run a seminar. We can discuss. I don't require much. What I require is to be flown. I need to buy a ticket on Delta. So I buy Delta, so my payment will be mileage. The other thing is room, airfare, room, food. And if if they're going to make money on it, give me a percentage of that. Other than that, I don't charge. I don't have a set base that you got to pay me $5,000 or you got. A lot of people have that, but I don't. I want to give back to my MMA community, give back to my fans, and if I have something that you want, then I can provide you with, like some technique or even some insight on mentality, then I'm more than happy. I'm not here to try and make money off you guys. I'm just not trying to lose money. So I'm doing one in San Diego on the 22nd at the arena. So California. So a lot of it I used to do one in Pennsylvania every year. I used to do one in Canada, but because of COVID, all of that got canceled. One of the gyms in Pennsylvania I used to do it at is down now. Actually, both of them, the Canadian one in Kingston, Ontario, that one closed down too. So a lot of the seminars are canceled because of the closing of gyms and because of COVID. So yeah, if I'm not going to go to the US unless I have a seminar set up. So set it up, let me know, and we can work on it.
Or if anyone's watching from the UK, someone get them to the UK so we can hang out.
Yeah.
I'll show you around.
Yeah.
So the next question comes from Joey Ortiz, who's curious to know what you think about the current Japanese MMA scene.
It's actually getting really good. When Rising first came out, it was like kind of it's not really like how Pride used to be.
Mm-hmm.
What really helped was the UFC coming here, brought a lot of interest then, and Rising right now is really doing a really good job with the MMA here. Even amidst COVID, they're running events and doing good with it. And the recent risings I've been sitting at, I'm sitting there thinking, holy shit, this is almost like Pride. This feels like, of course, nothing's ever going to be like Pride, but it feels pretty close to it, man. So right now, the current situation in MMA in Japan is on a rise, man.
Mhm.
They're creating little stars. The Asakura brothers are big stars. Horiguchi is a huge star.
Mhm.
So they're creating stars, which is really exciting right now. What we're going to need is borders to open so you can bring in more famous fighters. There's our world bringing more famous fighters that are known throughout the world.
Mhm.
And we need a superstar, man. We need Sushi to knock out some big dude. We need Asakura to beat some famous top guy in the U.S. We need Horiguchi to do that. So it's a matter of time. I think that right now the MMA in Japan is on a huge upward spiral. So looking forward and getting excited about it.
Yeah, definitely feels like that. I think last couple of events have been great with the tournament, and Souza as well, and just some awesome star making performances from a lot of guys. I think so. I think it's only gonna get better.
Yeah.
Never Give Up Clothing. There's a plug for you there. Asked what tattoo on your body means the most to you.
Wow, there's a clothing company called Never Give Up.
Apparently so.
Oh, they gotta send me some shirts, man. Well, okay, the tattoos that mean the most to me is there's a bunch, but the one that I would have to say is the ones on the palms of my hands. It's this one says Ichizoku, and this one says Hokori. So this means family. This means pride. So the reason why I put them on the palms of my hands is because I believe that when you're a baby, you put your finger in a baby, they'll squeeze it. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's like the first power you'll have is to squeeze your hand. And if you've had anyone that's on their deathbed and they can't speak, and the doctor or you will put your finger in their palms and say, if you can hear me, squeeze your hand, and they can squeeze. So that's like the last power. So I believe that in my life, I believe my pride is real important. Yeah, because without my pride, I couldn't stand as a man. And if I can't stand as a man, I can't protect my family. So my pride and my family is the two most important things to me. And until the day I die, I'm going to make sure that I hold it close to my heart. So that's why I put it in the palms of my hands. So these are the tattoos that are like the most important to me. And ironically, it was actually the most painful.
Really, palm of your hands was the most painful.
Yeah.
That's surprising. Because you're tattooed everywhere, so it's like
So much nerves. There's so much nerves. If you run your finger to
Yeah.
your hand like this, it's kind of ticklish, yeah?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
because
yeah.
of the nerves in your hand.
That makes sense. So I'm gonna try and pronounce this right. Inoue is curious to know. He's asked about your inspiration for getting into MMA, but again, I'm gonna plug that episode of the early years. Check that out. It's worth a watch just to see sort of what sort of got Enson inspired into going into it. But what he does say is he's from Hawaii, and he says obviously the scene there's so popular now. But he's asking what the scene was like when you were growing up, and was there much of a scene in Hawaii at the time?
When I was growing up, there was no scene.
Yeah.
There was no fighting. There was no events. The only thing that was real popular when I was in Hawaii, growing up in Hawaii, I think it was Dennis Alexio, one of the kickboxers. He was one of the big fighters. The other thing was Jesus Salud was a boxer from Hawaii that was real popular. Went into I think was a world champion. But as far as MMA, there was no MMA. MMA didn't exist.
Yeah.
So like Dennis Alexio would fight like 2 to 3 times a year, and that was like the huge thing about fighting. But that was just PKA kickboxing. So when I was growing up, I wasn't as fortunate as these guys are that you guys got a MMA. Like you have a lot of promotions right now in Hawaii that's running events, and even Bellator goes to Hawaii. So man, it was non-existent. So the fight scene in Hawaii was non-existent, especially MMA.
Rod Arimura says he's a big fan of your work that you do at Destiny Forever, and he's curious to know how you actually got into it initially.
I got into Destiny Forever from making the bracelets because I used to wear them. I used to wear the bracelets for in Japan. We wear them for protection. So these bracelets are all power stones, and if they ever break, they're believed to have taken either so much negative energy for you that it's broken, or it's taken something bad that was supposed to come to you in place of you. So I always just, I got into a car accident where one of my bracelets broke, but I only got a fat lip from the airbag. I totaled a Mercedes Benz, and whether it was just coincidence or not, man, I didn't get hurt, but my bracelet broke. And I just from there I always like to keep it on just so I could be protected. So that was a big thing why I got interested in the bracelets. And one thing led to another where I ended up starting to make it, and I made it for myself until people asked me to make it for them. Made it for some people. Then people asked me that they wanted to buy some, and one thing led to another. Is because it's actually a passion that I had became a business. So I have. You guys can check it out on my website, destinyforever.com. Or, if you're in Hawaii, whenever I'm in Hawaii, I have a shop in Hawaii that I open up. But if anything, destinyforever.com, log into that website, check out the bracelets, and we'll be putting out, notices on the site of when my next trip to Hawaii is. So, yeah, that's the reason why I got into the bracelets. And right now, I'm like totally love Power Stones, man. I mean, I can go to a shopping center in China that has all power stones and walk around for 6 hours straight without taking a break. My translator, that's not really that interested, but just translating, just freaking just tries to rest every time he has, and I'm just into that zone. I just love it. I can talk and look at power stones all day. One of my passions.
And just on that note, Fiona Sutton on Facebook, she was curious to know whether the different color strings that you use in the bracelets, do they have any significance?
No, the only significant, some people refer color to certain things, like green means money, red means good luck, that kind of stuff. But for me, the color on the strings are just colors that, decoration to the bracelets. Because, it's real amazing because if I make a bracelet like this, you see how it has black string on the outside?
Yeah.
If I were to change those strings to green, it'll have a whole different look.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to change those strings to like what would match, like a gold string, it would have a whole different look. So, the string, what's cool about the string is you can choose your string, and, in about 6 months to 5 to 6 months, your string starts getting worn out. It might thread and snap. So they usually bring it back for me to restring. And some people like to change strings every time they restring because it makes it like you have a whole brand new bracelet. Yeah. So strings has no meaning or no significance to any type of meaning, but it's just something that you can choose on your own, and you can pretty much make an original bracelet by choosing different colors.
Great. So I think that's pretty much all of the questions that we had sort of came in. Apologies if I've missed any, but I've tried to sort of go through all of them as best as I can. But maybe we could wrap up with one final one from me.
Okay.
I'm just curious to know, was there a particular moment which wasn't in a fight? Maybe a fight of someone else's, someone you were in the corner of, maybe when you were watching backstage. But is there any particular one that sort of stands out to you the most as like a memorable moment?
Geez,
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
for me, yeah, memorable moment. If anything, I could think of a real memorable moment for me was when Sarah fought.
Yeah.
She fought in Shuto, and it was like it was I was torn because she wasn't moving her head, so she was taking a lot of shots, but kept coming forward, and to a point where it was like actually I asked her to fight. Someone actually commented to me saying like, "Oh, now you know how Egan feels." When Egan was in my corner, so I was like, "Oh shit, true." So it was to that point where she was actually willing to throw down.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the big things that I remember is she had a swelling in her eye after the I think the second round. Well, it was 2 rounds. So after the first round, where they were actually going to stop the fight. And I remember that I could see that fire in Sarah's eyes that she wanted to continue. And it just stands out in me because that's how I was.
Mm.
So when I saw that, I knew I had to do something because the way they were talking to each other, looked like they were going to stop the fight. And I was pretty sure they're going to. So being who I was and being how feared / respected I am in the Japanese MMA, I shouted out, "Come on, man, one more round. She's okay. Just one more round." And it was funny because I think it was a little bit of the respect they had where they said, okay, Enson should know what he's talking about. And then the little fear they're saying, oh, fuck. If we stop this, Enson's going to be pissed. So with that little word that I put in,
Yeah,
they let it continue, which was pretty cool because she finished the fight in flying colors. She did it really well. So
yeah,
I just remember that. I remember that moment. Like I could see in Sarah's eyes that she wanted to continue.
that's awesome.
And I felt like that there was a real good bond between corner and fighter where I understood her really well.
Yeah.
And, for me, that was a real, anything like you said, it's anything that really stands out to me. That stood out a lot to me.
Yeah.
That Sarah was such a freaking a beast, man. So we're working on, trying to get her in Rising. Right now, because of COVID, we can't get any opponents for her.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as COVID opens, I'm already talking to Rising to get her an opponent. So hopefully she can get it back in the ring and show that that violence and that Yamatodamashii that we lack in fighters today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of fans would like to see her fight again. So
Yeah,
fingers crossed. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. Well, that sort of concludes our 2-part episode of the fan Q&A. But if you guys have questions, it's always worth sending them into Enson. He always is super approachable on the social media. So by all means, do that. And then in the future, we'll probably look at doing another series of these videos as well. So if you do, just shoot us a message, and we can always save it for the next one.
Yep. Hope I answered your guys' questions. If not, we can, if you didn't feel like I answered enough, we can touch up on it, ask it again, and we're going to do quick Q&As every so often like this. So if you have more questions, hold up, wait for us to announce that we're going to have another Q&A. Send us your questions, and we'll get them answered.
Great. Thanks, everybody. Take care.